I know, don't go to it. Look, just days after the Prime Minister sacked his party chairman, Nadhim Zahawi, it looks like another time bomb is ticking in Rishi Sunak's staffing cabinet. The Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary, Dominic Raab, has been accused of bullying by at least 3 senior civil servants who have given evidence to the inquiry into his behaviour. Downing Street has repeatedly said Mr Sunak wasn't aware of formal complaints, but there is a growing focus on what the Prime Minister knew when he appointed Mr Raab as his right-hand man. Mr Raab himself obviously denies the allegations. But I do think it begs the question, when it comes to the workplace, and I hate to ask this, but have become a little bit too soft. OK, right, to debate this, and bearing in mind I'm coming from a tabloid newspaper background, so, you know, I'm probably slightly biased. But to debate this, I'm joined by the studio by senior reporter at the newspaper, another newspaper background, but slightly different, Benjamin Butterworth, and filmmaker Ceri Dingle. Welcome to you both. Hi. Thank you so much for giving up your time on a Friday night. Right, OK, well, I've asked, have we become too soft? So, Benjamin's looking at me already. I know what he's going to say on this one, Ceri. Benjamin, there's a fine line between what is bullying and what should be just a bit of fun in the office, is there?
I mean, look, you know, there is obviously fun and banter that can happen in an office, but, you know, I think this idea that somehow you can't enjoy the office environment if you can't have a few throwaway homophobic or sexist comments. You know, actually, this generation...
I didn't mean it earlier on, honestly.
This generation, millennials like me, or Gen Z, the ones under 25 who are now in the workplace, you know, I think the fact that we have young people in this country who don't want to have those kind of abusive terms used, whether it's claimed to be banter or not, the fact that they want to assert their rights, they want to have a solid working life where they can work from home or in the office, I think those kind of changes in the workplace are for the better. And actually, you know, a lot of young people like me, if I can stretch young to just about fit me in that category...
He is stretching it a lot, by the way.
You know, we look at your generation, I'm afraid I think it is a generational shift, and we think you were treated so badly, you were abused, it was intense, it was bullying, it was stressful, and actually surely we can do better. And that's why I think standing up and calling a lot of this stuff bullying is for the best.
I just like to stay here and there, no one's ever bullied my entire life.
No,
I really haven't been bullied, no, and I've not been a bully either. I've been a boss, but I've never been a bully. Ceri, what do you make of what Benjamin's just said?
Well, if I said I thought that was BS, Benjamin, would that make me a bully? Because actually, that's what Raab's... one of the complaints against Raab is that he said to a civil servant that that's BS. Or he's said to Gina Miller, who he has a profound difference with over Brexit, are you stupid, or is it that your pockets are so deep that you can afford to go to the courts to undermine the will of the people? Now, personally, maybe in a less obnoxious tone, I'd have said exactly the same to Gina Miller, and I don't accept that that's bullying. This is politics, not the playground. And I think we are seeing the infantilisation of adults, and your generation are the unhealthy recipients of that, I think, Benjamin, because you are being made to feel that you can't stand up for yourself. You must fill in a form. You must go to a third party because you're not capable of challenging the obnoxious, and I think that's unhealthy and quite dangerous.
But you know what? I think power dynamics have a lot to do with this. So if you said that remark to me in this studio, well, we're on an even level. We're doing the same job right now. But when you've got a Secretary of State, a Deputy Prime Minister, no less, using that kind of language against people who are far more junior than him, then I think that comes across in a very different way. You know, Gina Miller is a wealthy woman by her own hard work, by the way. People often try to claim it's just her husband. But when she's being attacked for actually asserting the law in that question, actually, I think there is a question about whether he was saying that to her because he's trying to bully her out of her guts and her confidence and her conviction. And I think that, you know, when you have people using their power, and we've had so many examples of this, whether it's the Dominic Raab question or whether it's more extreme things like sexual assault in Hollywood, which we have lots of stories are, this is about power. And when people with power deride those without it, that can be workplace bullying.
I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg has said that, you know, people are getting a bit too snowflakey, and there is no actual legal definition of bullying. I mean, if your boss shouts at you, then that's not officially bullying. That's not a legal definition of bullying. So it's like there's a it's like, if you've got an assertive boss who wants things done, male or female, who wants things done and is a bit sort of like a bit shouty about it, I don't perceive that as bullying, but maybe I'm wrong, Ceri.
Well, no, I don't think that that's bullying. I think, being driven, passionate, pushing people, challenging people, I think those are all I think Benjamin would agree, those are a really good thing. I think the important thing here is this is politics, and I think it's totally disingenuous if you disagree with someone to then write it off as bullying, because that's basically shutting down the debate. And there really has, you're right, Dawn, there isn't a obvious dictionary definition, but there has been a massive expansion of what the term means. It used to be that you were pushed around in the playground and someone tried to nick your pocket money, and quite rightly that's bullying, and something needs to be done. But to bring this into politics, and on your point, Benjamin, civil servants are not this great 500,000 vulnerable adults. These are 500,000, average age 44, 98% with a degree, on between 35 and 64,000 a year.
But doesn't that show their point, not Dominic Raab's?
And you go into the civil service and you work in a ministerial department expecting to take the rough and the smooth. Now, Dominic Raab might be a bit obnoxious, but that can go across the political parties. It's called the cut and thrust of argument, and argument is what democracy is based on. Now, I'm a huge fan, I don't know what you think of it, of Armando Iannucci's In the Thick of It and In the Loop, if you've seen that, the series and the thing. And I think you'll find that the Tucker character, who's really arsey with people, very obnoxious, is actually based on Alistair Campbell, as it happens. So we've seen this on all sides. Yet people didn't used to turn around and shout bully, did they?
But I think they should have, because, I won't comment on Alistair Campbell. The character in The Thick of It, which I suspect everyone's familiar with, is obviously a bully. He uses being loud, swearing, physical gestures to intimidate people around him. That is a prime example of bullying. And I'm just not willing to accept, in principle, that people who have become senior civil servants, who have to be very bright, very hard-working, have to do an awful lot when governments are a bit rubbish. I'm not willing to accept that they're some kind of snowflakes that don't know how to deal with a minister. If they've become a senior civil servant, they've dealt with many ministers over the years. Why is it that Dominic Raab is the one that crossed the line?
But why is it that the substance of politics is no longer the politics? It's not what these ministers are doing and saying and arguing for. It's their behaviour. It's how they do it. It's their tone. I think it's a tragedy that we've moved into this realm and that we either have victims or bullies. And I think it's damaging to politics, and it's very degrading for those of us who want to question things.
I think people who stand up to bullies are the reverse of victims. They are the people that are doing the right thing. And that's why I'm proud to be part of a generation that doesn't stand for the same workplace attitudes that were normal.
But you don't challenge things, Benjamin. You complain, or you file a report, or you call a third party, or you want someone to adjudicate. It's not, as of old, in my youth, we would do things like send someone to Coventry, which doesn't mean Coventry near Birmingham, however people might think of it.
That's possibly bullying.
Not speaking to them because their behaviour is obnoxious.
But tell me, you're both women, successful women. You must. I'm guessing you've been on the receiving end of sexism at times, or attempted sexism, which is a form of bullying.
Yes, the high heel came in handy.
Yeah, quite. Yeah. They'll come out of hospital soon.
But, tabloids... you, of course, are an extremely pleasant person to work with, but tabloids have a reputation for real bullying cultures. But they also... it's spewed over into an entire inquiry only a few years ago.
I've worked on tabloids pretty much all my career, and the only person that ever attempted to bully me, depressingly, was another woman. And I dealt with it by diffusing it with humour. The last thing on my mind was giving her knowledge that she'd upset me in some way by filing a complaint or reporting her. I dealt with it, and I didn't perceive it to be bullying. I perceived it to be a bit of challenge, I think. The one thing I am concerned about here now, not so much with your generation, but the generation below you, because you're getting old now, Benjamin, obviously, not bullying, is that, you know, we're mollycoddling youngsters, especially at university, where we're putting trigger warnings on things like Jane Austen and what was it, and even Peter Pan the other day I read, because it might be upsetting. How do we then expect these people to go out into the workplace? Because the workplace isn't nice, we know that. I mean, not all professions are cuddly-wuddly. You are going to come up against aggressive people who are go-getters and not bullies necessarily. How is that preparing them for real life, Benjamin?
I mean, first of all, there is a difference, of course, between being aggressive or knowing what you want and being a bully. You know, I am, I'm a pretty clear person. I can be aggressive in the workplace because I like to get things done, especially when you work in a newspaper, though you don't have the luxury of time. Yeah. But, you know, no one's ever suggested I'm a bully. So I don't think that it's hard to be both determined and clear and not bully. But I think, you know...
But other people who are younger than you might not see your determination, your determined attitude as that. They might see it as being aggressive and bullying.
But I think, you know, when we talk about trigger warnings in books and things, and I kind of hate the term generally, for me, that's about letting people know what they're in for. It's about people understanding the context of things. And actually, why should we take pleasure from people being upset or offended needlessly in their day-to-day studying or lives and workplaces?
Who the hell gets upset by Peter Pan? Ceri, last word.
Well, I think it's a classic example of where things have got out of hand, ridiculous and wrong. And I'm quite prepared, if people want to call me intimidating or a tyrant or aggressive or driven or any of those things, because I profoundly disagree with the idea of trigger warnings, which don't even deal with the problems that people who have psychological problems are up against, then so be it. You know, I would stick to the old adage, now no longer trendy, which sticks and stones will break my bones and words won't hurt me. And, you know, as far as I'm aware, Dominic Raab hasn't hit anybody, not even with the tomato that he chucked across the table.
It was a very aggressive cherry tomato.
Very aggressive, yeah, evidently. And I think we need more robust rows in politics and less of this cajoling and soft-soaping and telling young people that, you know, that you have to stroke them and effectively lie to them for them to cope with life. No, let's start standing up for ourselves. If people during the miners' strike, my day and my youth in politics, hadn't been prepared to take a very strong stand and be intimidating,
standing up
things
to bully
would have been even worse.
Unfortunately, we have to move on.